AI minds, quantum leaps. Cut the noise, dive deep. Truth unlocked. Dr. Mike on the mic. Tech Unfiltered is on the clock. Now it's time for the show.
A machine can write an essay, and now another machine may decide whether a machine wrote it. Then a human being still has to decide what that result means. Welcome to Tech Unfiltered. I'm Dr. Mike. Today's story is about a New York company called Pangram and a larger question. Should an automated detector ever get the final word on human authorship? On July 29th, 2026, TechCrunch reported that Pangram raised $9 million. The same day, the company released Pangram 4, its new text detector, and introduced an image detector as a research preview. Pangram sells a web tool, a browser extension, and an application programming interface. Its customers include schools, universities, publishers, recruiters, and online platforms. TechCrunch also reported that Substack recently integrated Pangram technology. That makes this more than a new software launch. AI detection is becoming trust infrastructure, a layer most people don't see, but one that can influence whether a paper, article, job application, or image is treated as authentic. So how does the text detector work? It isn't finding a hidden confession or a universal watermark. According to Pangram's technical material, the model looks at a large set of learned statistical and stylistic patterns. It estimates whether different parts of a document are human-written, AI-assisted, or AI-generated. That three-part distinction matters. A person might create an original argument, use a tool to correct grammar, accept two suggested sentences, and revise everything else. Calling all of that simply AI-generated would erase meaningful differences in authorship. Pangram says its new model is more than 6 times larger than the prior version. The company says it trained the model on licensed or company-owned human writing and synthetic examples generated in-house from 75 language models. It says it did not train on user-submitted scans or unauthorized web crawls. Its main training technique is called a synthetic mirror. The system starts with a human document and asks a language model to create a similar document on the same subject, at roughly the same length and style. The goal is to teach the detector to notice patterns of machine generation without relying on shortcuts such as topic or genre. Now, the performance numbers need careful attribution. These are Pangram's results on Pangram's benchmarks, using Pangram's definitions and operating threshold. The company reports 41 false positives in 1 million held out English documents. That is about 1 in 24,000. It also reports missing roughly 3 or 4 AI-generated documents per thousand across nearly 520,000 English generations from 26 model families. On a multilingual test, the reported miss rate was about 1.25%. Pangram also says it detected AI involvement in text processed by 13 commercial rewriting tools just under 99% of the time. Those results are impressive, but they are not a universal guarantee. TechCrunch performed limited hands-on testing. The reporter found that the detector reliably flagged fully generated articles in most attempts to edit around detection. It was not perfect. Some fully human-written sentences were marked as AI-assisted. In one image test, a real-world photo containing an AI image was labeled human. That is not a formal benchmark, but it is a useful reminder that laboratory performance and individual cases are different things. Scale makes even a small error rate important. Imagine a large university scanning 1 million papers. If the real-world false positive rate matched 1 in 24,000, dozens of innocent papers could still be flagged. For each affected student, the system's overall accuracy would offer little comfort. A detector score should be evidence that begins a review, not a verdict. It cannot prove who wrote a document, prove intent, or establish cheating by itself. It also cannot tell us whether the content is true. Provenance and truth are separate questions. A human can write something false, and an AI system can accurately summarize a primary source. Authorship information can guide verification, but it cannot replace verification. Pangram's own model card lists important limits. The text detector is designed for complete long-form prose of at least 50 words. Short replies, single factual answers, source code, reference sections, templates, technical manuals, and math. Heavy text may be more error-prone or outside its intended scope. Extracting text from a PDF can introduce artifacts. The company also says a passage can sometimes receive a different result when scanned alone than when it appears inside a longer document. The image detector deserves even more caution because it is a research preview. Pangram reports strong internal results and offers a heat map that highlights regions it considers synthetic. But the tool cannot process images smaller than 512 pixels on each side. It is not designed to confidently identify face swaps or deepfakes. And some AI editing systems regenerate an entire picture, so a small edit may cause the whole image to be labeled as AI made. The reverse is equally important. If a detector does not flag an image, that does not make the image authentic. The absence of an alarm is not a certificate. Independent research shows why this remains an arms race. A May 2026 paper from Carnegie Mellon researchers and collaborators tested commercial detectors including Pangram and GPT-0. The researchers found that base language models, before instruction tuning turns them into chat assistants, often produce text that the detectors judged highly human. They also developed an iterative paraphrasing method that moved generated text toward the human category while preserving much of its meaning. Their interpretation was that detectors may recognize habits of today's chatbots more reliably than any permanent fingerprint of machine authorship. That study did not test Pangram 4, which is newer. It does show why independent evaluation must continue after launch, because the target keeps changing. Detection also works best when it is paired with positive evidence. For an image, that can include the original file, camera information, publication history, reverse image search, and a signed content credential. For writing, it can include notes, source links, earlier drafts, and a document's edit history. These records don't prove that every sentence is honest, but they can show how a work developed. That is often more informative than asking one classifier to make a binary judgment from the finished product alone. Policies should also separate assistance from substitution. Correcting spelling is different from generating an argument. Translating a writer's own ideas is different from inventing sources. A clear policy should describe what is allowed, what must be disclosed, and what evidence will be reviewed if a detector raises concern. Without those rules, even a technically strong detector can produce arbitrary outcomes. Here's the practical takeaway. If you create important work, keep drafts, notes, sources, raw images, and version history. If a policy expects disclosure of AI assistance, disclose it clearly. If your work is flagged, ask which detector, version, threshold, input format, and policy were used. Then request a human review and provide evidence of your process. If you run a school, business, newsroom, or platform, never connect a detector result directly to punishment. Test the detector on your own documents and population. Measure false positives. Exclude formats the vendor says are outside scope. Preserve an appeal process and reevaluate performance as generation tools change. The central question is no longer whether machines can make convincing content. It is whether another machine should get the final word on who made it. Pangram 4 is evidence that detection is improving. It is not evidence that uncertainty is gone. Trust will come from careful systems, transparent policies, multiple signals, preserved evidence, and human judgment. A percentage on a screen can help, but it should never be the whole decision. I'll see you in the next one.